Richarlison. Well done, Manchester United.
Beckham. It's a Sheringham. And Solskjaer has won it. Radisson saved it. United again. Ready. A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie.
Welcome to United Hour, your redcafe.net podcast for all things Manchester United. I am your host for this week, Mark.
I'm Ed.
And I'm Ashwin.
Preseason is well underway. The tour has not officially come to an end, I don't think, but at least the Far East portion has come to an end, or Far East in Australia, I should say. 2 games in Perth, 1 game in Singapore, and 1 game in Shanghai. 4 wins from 4. Thus far, the performances are looking pretty good and have gotten progressively better. And although we had a bit of a hiccup in the second half today, but we've generally made the step up in quality against each opponent. So I'll open it up. I'll go with Ashwin. What have been impressions? We'll start with the first 2 games with Perth and Leeds. What were your impressions over those games? Your thoughts going into it and your thoughts coming out of them?
I barely watched those games, but you guys did a really good job of summarizing them on WhatsApp. So I don't know. I guess just watching the highlights. The biggest thing I noticed was like every highlight it seemed like we were creating chances regularly. And even in previous preseasons against overmatched opponents, that hasn't necessarily been the case. Granted, it also seemed like we were, I don't want to say gifting opportunities away, but we were definitely a little bit more adventurous, so naturally giving up more at the back. But it was it's definitely like a worthwhile trade-off, and I think that's kind of the time of the year that you want to at least push the boundaries and see what you can get away with and what you can't. So, I don't know. I think just from a very, very limited viewing of those games, I would say that it looked like we approached that stuff with a plan. And, however you feel about, our summer dealings and how good Solskjaer is or not as a manager, I think it's obvious he at least has a very clear idea of how he wants us to play and has set the team up to play like that. And there hasn't been any messing around with formations. It's been 4-2-3-1 consistently. And even with Van Gaal and Mourinho, obviously much higher pedigree as managers, but I guess Van Gaal tried the 3-5-2, but it always felt like we were shifting formations, even in preseason, especially last year with Mourinho. It was he was just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what would stick. But, with Solskjaer, it does seem like there's a plan of, okay, this is how we want to play. And then you can see him kind of testing out different partnerships in midfield and at center back and, that he wants to see. So I like that. I think that was a good sign.
Yeah, and I take your point as well about how there being more chances created against teams like Perth and Leeds, like you were saying, they were being overmatched. And I remember countless pre-season games whereby we were turning up against, I don't know, like Real Salt Lake or whatever. And
hey man, MLS is good, all right?
so they keep saying. But no, all that aside, we were just terrible in those games, and there's a very clear difference in terms of our performances at a level of where we should be expecting them to be at, rather than just saying it's it's only pre-season. We've had that for about 5 years in a row now, or we had that for 5 years in a row, I should say, and we never kicked on another gear after that. It was always just, it stayed mundane, and the performances didn't really match. Come out of pre-season or anything like that. It didn't kick on another level, really.
Not to bring things down, but that doesn't mean that's not going to happen again.
No, absolutely. But it gives you the best chance of sustaining some form if you've actually got some.
Yeah,
rather than trying to find some on the fly. So obviously the big takeaway from, I think, the Perth game, and for some people in the Leeds game as well, although this had a bit of a step down in terms of performance, was how Dan James has kind of quickly slotted in He had a really good game against Perth, a really, really positive debut. Ed, what have your been impressions of Dan James, not only from what we've been seeing on the pitch, but we've seen some pretty impressive stuff with him off the pitch as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was that interview recently where he said his dad is still sort of driving him. You know, he's a young lad. I lost my father at a young age, and it does have a big effect on you. And I can see, I'm sort of glad that sort of stuff hasn't sort of hindered his development so far, because it can break a player. It can break anyone really, losing your father at that young age. But he's come on pre-season, you know, across the world, and he's been brilliant, I'd say. You know, the desire's there. He's quick. He works hard for the team. I'd be happy to see him rotated and being in and around the first team in this first season. Yeah,
then that was a big thing for me, is that we didn't really know how, like, where we were, I think, discussing him on the last podcast, and we didn't really know whereabouts he was going to land in terms of how many games or whereabouts in the rotation he was going to be this year. But he's come out and, you know, he's maybe not put the starting claim for that starting left wing and right wing spots, but he's certainly first reserve in those two spots at the moment.
He's had some good chances as well. He's hit the bar and post a couple of times, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's getting there with it as well. He's just a bit of fine tuning on either of those shots, and you know, we'd be looking at a really, really impressive debut from a new signing, or at least a good couple of games on a pre-season.
I think he will start.
I mean, I'll be honest.
I think he's going to start at right wing. I just think he's going to start, because if we're all about, I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious that Solskjaer has committed heavily that we're going to be pressing. Like, we're going to keep a high line. We're going to press from the front.
Oh yeah, we're definitely a pressing team now.
And if you're going to do that, like, we'll get to Greenwood later, I'm sure, but James is, I mean, it's been probably the biggest thing to notice is that he's actually a winger. So he actually, like, he keeps the width, you know. He doesn't always cut in. He's comfortable going outside. In fact, I think he's more comfortable going outside unless he cuts in. And even when he cuts in, he's not really necessarily looking to shoot as much as link up with others. No. So he's very different in how, you know, when we play Martial out wide or Rashford out wide, or even Greenwood, what we've seen from him so far out wide is when he plays out wide, he wants to come in and shoot on his left, right? With James, he keeps width, and he creates space for Martial and for Rashford to exploit in the middle, and that's why I think we've created so many chances. And you know, and his pressing is, I mean, his work rate in general. And granted, he hasn't gone a full 90 yet, and maybe, you know, that's probably something that he might not have the stamina to do that because of how hard he works when he's out there. But when he's out there, like, you know, he has a tangible effect on. I mean, it's kind of weird to talk about a winger like that, but he has a very tangible effect on us defensively, because he gives us a dimension that, you know, even like, you know, Rashford works hard, Lingard works hard, Martial's been working hard too, to be fair to him. But like, I don't think any of them compare to him in how fast they are and how quick they are and tenacious they are when they press. And he's the kind of player that, you know, I just can imagine he'll just piss guys off so much and draw yellow cards because of it. I mean, hell, we almost saw it today. Should have been a red.
Yeah, I think it sort of harks back to Fergie's sort of philosophy in that there are partnerships across the pitch. So you've got your centre-back partnerships, you've got your right-back and winger partnerships. That they defend and they attack as a unit, and that's perhaps something we haven't really seen so much in recent years. Probably in part because we haven't really had out-and-out wingers or out-and-out wing backs, right backs, left backs, full backs, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, and the closest thing to any kind of meaningful relationship in terms of a full back and winger partnership that we've had was that the Depay and Shaw bromance, which was sort of broken up quite quickly after it started with Shaw's injury. And just Depay being Memphis Depay. Yeah. But, yeah, so I understand what you're saying in terms of opening up space, and I think I might have imagined it. I hope that I haven't, but I think when James and Pogba have been on the pitch together, there seems to be that Paul Pogba has a lot more space to operate in.
Yeah.
And it's because that fullback isn't able to tuck in, and it allows Pogba to pick out those sort of more adventurous passes, but he's got more of a gap to try and thread that ball through as well.
It's everybody too, even McTominay. Like he's playing more progressive passes in preseason than I've ever seen him play. When I've seen him. So I just think like we're so starved for that type of player that maybe we're even overrating James right now. I wouldn't be shocked if we are, but it's just that like those qualities in a player we haven't had since we sold Nani, or like since last time.
Nani.
I mean, who was the last actual good winger we had that provided that type of width? I honestly think it was probably him, or before Valencia went to shit.
I'd say Giggs or Beckham are probably the best.
Well, they're the best. I'm just saying, like, we haven't had that since then. You know, like Nani provided width, Valencia provided width. They give you more
I
space.
suppose. No, I suppose you're right.
Yeah. So it's just like we haven't, and it's truly pathetic for a club of our size that it's been that long. But here we are, and whatever it is, it's like that is something. And as much as the transfer dealings are lagging or whatever, like that's obviously something they identified very early and were aggressive in moving for. I think we'll reap some of the benefits of that this year, but I think obviously the hope is down the line there'll be a lot more to come from James. I think right now he's more of like a just work really hard and hopefully chip in with like 6-7 goals, a few assists.
Everyone slated Brendan Rodgers for his comment about young players and old players, saying a young player will run through a barbed wire fence for you, whereas an older player, like a more experienced player, will find a hole through it. And the more I think about it, it does make sense. And James has been
it's going to catch on. It will catch on.
Daniel James. He's been really good. I've been pleasantly surprised because I think I was probably of the guys on the pod.
Yeah, you hated him. You hated him.
I was. I drove around and kicked his dog. I was sceptical because I was thinking, well, he's coming from a championship club. He's a young lad. Is he really a proper United signing? But then. I don't know. Yeah, he's put the performances, he's put the work in. Based on that, he does deserve to be in the team. Certainly more than some of the players are currently in it.
Yeah, and there's quality to be had everywhere, regardless whether it's the championship or not. It's the type of player that you're signing that's important. And I think the more and more I see him play, the more and more I see a player like Ji-sung Park.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a lazy comparison, I guess, because he runs about a lot. Park did have a more refined technical aspect to his game that he wasn't able to show all that much, but it was still there than maybe what possibly James has right now. But he's got time to refine that.
Championship winning teams are more than the sum of their parts. That's just a fact. And players like Park and hopefully James are some of the more important players in that machine.
Absolutely. Yeah, you find no argument from me on that one. I don't think you find much of an argument from anyone on that. I think the roll call for players that we've had like that, you look at O'Shea and Fletcher.
Exactly.
And, like others of that ilk. I mean, to a lesser extent, you're looking at players like Darren Gibson as well, who, although they still had their part to play in that, like in Fergie's last title-winning season and what have you. So
they won't score the screamer that you'll be remembering for 10 years' time, but they're the ones that do the nitty-gritty throughout the season that win the championship.
I don't know if you can apply that to O'Shea.
Oh, he did. He did save that penalty, didn't he?
Like, O'Shea played all along the back line and in central midfield and would...
Didn't he play every position?
And would score you.
Yeah, he's played every position for United,
Yeah, near enough, yeah. Like, that's the very definition of a guy like that. That's
exactly
what you want. Like, so, yeah, we won't have a bad word said against John O'Shea on this podcast. Thank you very much.
I actually think that Dallo has a little bit of that quality in him too, where he's young and just like exuberant to be at United that, you know, when he's like play left back, he goes and plays left back, play right wing. Like he's just happy to be on the pitch whenever he's on the pitch. And like, you know, he doesn't, I don't know, like you can't really compare them as players. They're very different. But I like that there is something to be said about, like, I think there's a clear reason why Solskjaer was so adamant about, you know, he wants young players. He wants to bring through young players because, like, we've needed that, and I don't even know if I appreciated how much we need that kind of like unproven young element to a team, because those players, you know, like you said, like they will run through a wall for you, and there are times like, you know, when a season is long, like you're playing
exactly.
you're playing in 4 competitions. You know, somebody like, I'm trying to think, like, you know, if you tell Martial now, right, like, oh, we're gonna play against fucking, I don't know, Crawley Town in the FA Cup, like he's not going to be.
I'm surprised you even know about Crawley Town.
Reach right there.
But like, he's not going to like care about that match. He's just going to like go out there and go through the motions most likely, and you know, try and like take the piss out of them. But that's it. Like he's not going to like really like Daniel James. You'll put him out there and he's going to play like he's playing, you know, a Champions League final probably. Like that's the kind of intensity he's going to bring every match. And obviously, you know, when you're playing every team in the league throughout the course of a season, like there are matches that it's hard to sustain like that kind of necessary emotion and energy that you need to win matches in the Premier League. And I think having these young, unproven players, if they have a certain, you know, floor level of technical ability and just like attributes they bring to your team, like they can help you get points that you would have dropped otherwise.
Yeah, and it's not even like, because if you put players like Dan James around Martial in that scenario, say for instance, but it's not just Dan James, it's having a player like Scott McTominay as well. It's having a guy that we're just about to speak about, Wan-Bissaka, on the other side of the pitch as well. It's more about having more people who take a lead or who assume a leadership role, not necessarily being the out and out blood and thunder or singing or dancing captain or what have you. But when you've got enough players, like you've got a Rashford, you've got a Dan James, you've got a Wan-Bissaka, you've got a McTominay, all players who leave it out on the pitch, it forces everybody else to do the same thing. And that's probably not what Martial's had. We've had journeymen coming through and sort of stopping by, like on their way onto the MLS. It seems like we're a pit stop before Major League Soccer or a big contract in China or what have you. Although we've had senior pros who have been there and seen it all and done it all. That's exactly been the point, is that they've seen it all and done it all and not been willing to go out and do more. And we have kind of just missed the boat a little bit, I think, and we, like you say, we have needed to kind of tear it all down.
And it's also just like players that they haven't established their name in the game, right? Like they haven't. Okay, Wan-Bissaka had a really good season at Crystal Palace, but you know, the greater audience of football isn't, you know, like they know the name maybe, but they don't know what he's about. They don't think like, oh, best right backs in the world. I guarantee you the average person isn't thinking about Wan-Bissaka. Sure as hell isn't thinking about Dan James and thinking about top wingers and forget the world, just in England or whatever. Like, you know, and Rashford, yeah, like he's a known name, but when you think about elite strikers, he's clearly not there. And, you know, Martial, maybe he thought he was already there after his first year. But I think, you know, I think having that kind of hunger around him has, you know, it can bring out better, like you said, Mark, like it can bring out better qualities in him. And it's like, you know, it's very different from a lot of the players we've recruited where it's like, you know, Pogba was relatively young when we bought him, but, you know, he was Paul Pogba. We paid a world record fee for him. He wasn't like some unknown talent that we're plucking from the second division in Italy or something. You know, Matic had already won 2 leagues. Ibrahimovic was, I mean, he's Zlatan. Everybody knows him, right? Like, these are guys that have already established their name to a degree, and they're kind of getting that big money move now. So, it's good to introduce that younger element of guys that, yeah, they're happy to be at United, but they're happy to be at United because that's the platform for them to, become stars in their own right.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's arguably already happening with Martial. Martial's looked so much more sort of dedicated these last few games than he has perhaps in the entire previous seasons.
He started his pre-season early as well. He was, I think he was back at it about a week or two.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the same way that Dan James was as well, because he's not been involved in the national team, and that's probably the biggest indictment, is that he should be not maybe walking into the French national team, but you look at that number 9 spot. There's definitely a scope for them to upgrade at that spot.
Well, Giroud.
Exactly, and so Martial should be occupying that spot, but he's been overlooked because of a perceived lack of effort and certainly a lack of output over the last 18 months or so.
And you thought after France won the World Cup and he watched them win the World Cup knowing that he could have been on, you'd have thought that sort of attitude change would have come last season, but it seems as though it has taken this sort of change in philosophy with approach to the team and the signings for that to actually happen.
As long as it happens, I'm fine. He's got his new contract, and it's time to kick on now. In terms of kicking on as well, just to move it on slightly, is the other new signing that we've been able to have probably more of a look at than what we had in terms of Dan James. But I mean, what an absolute mammoth of a signing this looks like it could turn out to be. I mean, Wan-Bissaka is just, I've never seen someone take to it like so quickly. It's like, and it's just sometimes a player can come to a new club and they can maybe take a while to maybe find their feet at a new club or what have you, but he just looks every inch one of the better right backs in the Premier League now. And my theory on him was that he was always the best right back outside of the top 6, and I probably feel like I've probably undersold him on that sense, because he looks better than Bellerin, he looks better than Trippier. I mean, Spurs don't even have a right back anymore.
The only person in the conversation is Alexander-Arnold. I think he's better than him, but I mean, even then, it's like they're just very different, because Alexander-Arnold is like, yeah, he's not terrible defensively or anything. I'm not saying that, but he is. Like, his strength as a player is obviously very much what he provides going forward. Whereas Wan-Bissaka, like, again, I don't think he's terrible going forward, but his strength very much, what he provides is, like, I mean, it is honestly amazing to not feel dread anytime the ball comes down our right flank. Because if anything, I'm like, okay, please keep trying. Please keep trying to get past this man, because it's not going to happen. It's great.
It's going to force play down the middle as well, because people give pelters for sure for what he doesn't do going forward, but there's very little that you can say about him going the other way in terms of criticism.
The going forward part isn't really what we've been lacking, because we've got players who can do that. Yeah. And we had them before we even signed James and what have you.
They also, like, it's... People always complain about... Like, I remember under Mourinho, it was always a constant thing where... and even under LVG, where it was like, we're so cautious going forward. And, I agree that to some extent that was just their approach as managers. But also they did not, like, you can't trust Ashley Young to be exposed in space on the wing. Like, you can't. And no. Valencia, like, as he got older, you obviously couldn't trust him. And then, like, obviously Shaw was dealing with injuries for so long. It was hard to trust him also. Like, when you have two fullbacks that, like, you're not worried about, what's going to happen if the other team counters and they have to defend 1v1, in space. It's like you're comfortable making that bet, and that allows you to commit more numbers forward and to take more risks. So I think, like, there's a payoff to, like, sure, you want Wan-Bissaka and you want Shaw to improve in their attacking capabilities, and I think that, like, that's obviously the next progression for them as players, but like the fact that they're solid defensively is something that you are okay with at this point in our team building, because you haven't had that for so long, and it gives the platform for Martial, for Pogba, for Rashford, for all these players to give their best going forward and not worry so much about like, well, what if I have to track back 60 yards? What if I have to, you know what I mean? You don't have to worry about that as much, and that makes such a big difference.
Yeah, and the defense being given that sort of platform to the forward players to perform has always been kind of a bone of contention with, I think, a lot of people who have watched us, in the sense that, particularly under Van Gaal, where you can tell that the possession was more of a defensive tactic than it was to give us any kind of meaningful output going forward. In terms, just to keep on Wan-Bissaka as well, is sort of one of the standout performances for him, where he's putting in tackles everywhere, was the Inter game. And just to speak on those next two games now, obviously Inter was, I believe, 1-0.
Yeah.
So on
Mason Greenwood at the end.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll get onto him in a second as well, and Tottenham as well. Did you see? Obviously, the Leeds was a 4-0, but I mean, I've been kind of the opinion that those two performances that we've had, I think we performed better in those two games than we did at any point during the Leeds game. Would that be something that you'd agree with? Or
Inter barely had a kick, in my opinion. I don't really remember a single chance that they had. I mean, we were struggling to break them down and get the goal, and that didn't really come until Greenwood came on. But we were by far the better team throughout the entire game.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I thought the only things they created were from crosses, which might be something why we need to address.
Crosses and set pieces.
Right. So it wasn't like in open play. I mean, it was. Look, Inter's nothing. They're not like an amazing team. Obviously, they just qualified this year for Champions League after, they've been in Champions League, but like they just qualified. They were fourth, right? So like they're not like some studly team, but at the same time,
neither are we.
Yeah, it's just
shut up, Mark.
Thursday nights, Channel 5.
No, it's just it was just nice to beat a team that has some pedigree and look clearly the better side. Granted, it's still preseason, but it's been a while since I think we could say that.
Oh yeah.
And I think that kind of extends to today as well, because I mean we all know Tottenham, the team that we're probably most familiar with in terms of the teams that we've already played in preseason thus far. We'll get onto why they're such dirty bastards in a moment, but the performance in that first half, like I don't know if we started later than them, possibly, but we just seem to be like, and again I'll go back to where like we just seem to be a couple of gears above them, didn't we, in that first half?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially, I remember the first 10 minutes quite well. The Harry Kane was just isolated. They were barely getting a kick, and we were putting in a high press. Who did we start with? Was it Martial, James, and was it Greenwood?
It's just gone. It was Greenwood, yeah.
Yeah, they and Pereira. They were all pressing really high and not really giving Tottenham a chance to play the ball forwards. And so it's like we were saying earlier. It's clear that we've got this high press strategy going into the next season, and Solskjaer has clearly been working on what's it called? Stamina.
Ah, yes, that.
Stamina. That's it. That's the word. I've had a pint. Pissed. Yeah. But I will say that in the first half, very much so, our attacking was far more fluid than it was in the second half. And whether that's just down to the changes or the personnel or not, I don't know, or just like a lower intensity, perhaps. I'm not too sure. I think Ashwin saw more of the second half.
Yeah, I think it was just the changes we made, and I don't know. I think it kind of just emphasized why I expect James and McTominay to start, and maybe Pereira too, because like it was just so noticeable the difference in how effective our pressing was. And because we were so effective pressing in the first half, it allowed us to keep possession. It kept Tottenham in large part pinned back and unable to kind of cope. Whereas in the second half, Fred is still playing catch up with his conditioning. Matic looks like the goddamn Titanic out there. Young,
just with less of a turning circle.
yeah, seriously. Young is not so young.
Didn't Young start? No, Young started.
He did. Yeah, he did start, but still, he contributes to that.
Yeah, just any way to have a dig.
Yeah, yep. And then honestly, I mean, the biggest thing, I guess we can talk about it because Bailly did get hurt, but my God, even before he got hurt, he was awful, like truly, truly awful. They just kept getting in behind him because, like, he's been. I think he's gotten worse in positional awareness from when he started at United to now.
Yeah, he's a bit of a headless chicken.
He just couldn't keep the line, and so like Son was just making these easy runs between him and Dalot because Dalot would keep the line with Lindelof and Shaw, and Bailly would be like 5 yards forward, and he just he got in behind a few times with that, and it was just like, I mean, I don't know. It's very hard for me to see him as any kind of solution at this point.
No, I do. Yeah, I think the takeaways primarily from the Inter game was that we are lacking. Well, Inter and Spurs game is that we are lacking a centre back and arguably a proper left back after Shaw.
Yeah, and I think full-back depth has been one of those things that I think everyone has wanted addressed, and I think obviously it was got to be paramount to bring in a full-back this year, and obviously we've done that with Wan-Bissaka. I think Young is a capable deputy at left back, but that's really being generous. Like it's gonna hurt more to watch than it is going to be a pleasure to watch Ashley Young play left back. And who knows? I mean, depending on what the situation with Rojo is, like maybe Rojo deputises at left back. Yeah, I know.
He was worse at left back than he is at centre back.
I know, but like
at centre back, at least like his kind of like blood and thunder, just like going out there to fuck people up. Like at least that has some value at centre back. At left back, he's just like he's a total like. There's not even one redeeming quality about him at that point.
No,
it's. I hope that he is just like, if like for me the left back depth should just be Shaw, Dalot, Young. Like I think Dalot should be primary backup for both full back positions.
That's where my headspace is at with it at the minute.
Yeah. And then if like if Shaw and Young are hurt, like I would find every way possible to not put Rojo at fullback. Like if that means that Wan-Bissaka has to come left and we start Laird on the right or something, that's fine. I cannot see. I can't ever watch that again in my life.
Ethan Laird, to his credit, and Brandon Williams as well, are both capable of playing left back. I personally would have those two ahead of Young in the pecking order already. Despite the fact that neither one of them has played a minute of senior football, I would still have both of them ahead of Ashley Young at left back. So that it's not that I want to see Young at left back, but I think I can understand it not being a priority this year, or maybe even next year, obviously depending on how well Williams and Laird do this.
We have bigger fish to fry
season.
right now. There's bigger concerns.
Yeah, and just before we get into that as well, because I know that everyone loves it when we talk about potential signings and whatnot. But just the potential for there not to be as many signings made as we may possibly have thought, because over the last since probably the Perth game, we've seen Gomez, Greenwood, and Taif Chong. We've not really seen that much of James Garner, despite the fact he got the goal against. He got one of the goals against Perth, which has been one of the better goals of the tour. To be fair, but. Just speaking on those three, in particular, Chong, Greenwood, and Gomez, they're ready, aren't they? Am I imagining it? I'm
not sold on Chong yet. I think he shows flashes of being a really good player, but then a lot of the time, then I'm wondering what he's doing.
He's a perfect bench option. He's a perfect bench option because he's going to come in against tired legs. He's the perfect guy to bring on. He's going to come in and run at you. As long as he's not, I don't think he's ready to start Premier League matches consistently. Maybe the odd one here or there, but I think he's mostly for sub use only, and then you can start him in cups. But yeah, I agree. I'm not sure about Chong, but I do like his energy. The one consistent feature of all these young players, it seems, is they all have a little bit of they're all a little very tenacious. I like that about all of the academy kids. Even the older ones like McTominay and Pereira today were, they ran over and got into it with Ali and Kane, and you like to see that. And it's a good mentality to have. But yeah, I like that about Chong. Like he got chopped down a couple of times against Inter, and he just kept going. He kept going at them, and that's not easy to do. So,
no,
I agree with you that I'm not sure about him yet, but I think that's fine. That's why he's like perfect for that role right now.
Because he does go on some really good runs, but then other times I'm just wondering why he's moved into the positions he moves into. But of the three, I'd say Greenwood and Gomez are closer to starting.
Those two are definitely the closer ones out of the three, and I think there's a consensus that obviously they are the more talented out of the three as well. I think it's always been a case of you can nitpick between Greenwood and Gomez as to who is the most talented out of those two. And then Chong has been kind of the third, and then Garner, and even guys like Dylan Levitt and stuff like that are still in that conversation as well. Just on Greenwood, I think, we're all in agreement that we've found our new United record top goal scorer. Yeah, that's what he's.
Right.
Well, that's
replacement
Lukaku.
Lukaku
Going to be
right.
Yeah.
No, I don't think we need to spy to replace Lukaku. Honestly, I think Mark called that, and I was like, "You're a fucking idiot." But yeah, no, again, maybe I'm getting carried away with preseason, but I just like the energy that we've seen with all the different options, and the key to all this obviously is Martial and Rashford delivering. Like they have to score, they have to be at least above 15 and hopefully pushing 20, if not beyond. But if they do that, then I think the rest of it is fine. How many goals did Lukaku score last season? It can't be much more than 15.
It wasn't. I don't think it was. I think it was around about the 13-14 mark. He went on like a 3 or 4 game run where he scored 2 goals, but before that, like in each game, but before that, he'd only ever scored like I think 4 or 5 for the season at that point, something dumb like that.
So and then
I don't think it was. If it was above 15, it wasn't too far much above it.
And how much did he actually enhance our play?
Debatable, if any.
Well, exactly. So, how much do we think Greenwood and Gomez would enhance our play?
Well, but more than what Lukaku does.
Okay, I don't know if we want to. I don't want to go too deep on the Lukaku hate because I think like that there is like. I agree. He's aesthetically not like a pleasing player to watch, especially not in how he's. It's
not even aesthetics. He's just not a pleasing player to watch.
He's not.
Like, but aesthetics or not.
But there is some value in it. Like, he still did score 15 goals in a down year.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying between Gomez and Greenwood, I think Lukaku's contribution for last season can easily be replaced by the two of them.
Yeah, I would like to bring in another a scoring. We'll probably get into this later, but I think we do need to add some more goals in the window if we sell Lukaku, which I'm totally fine with now. And I've actually been fine with that for a while just because of his whole weak-ass mentality. But, yeah, I'm fine. If the worst-case scenario is that we sell Lukaku and don't bring anybody in, so be it. I think that we still have enough to... Obviously, we're not challenging for the title no matter what, which I think everybody is aware of. But I still think without him and without replacing, quote-unquote, his goals, I think there's more than enough here that you should expect, a 3rd or 4th place finish.
There's an argument to not bring anyone in because it's precisely to give and also keep minutes available for Greenwood and Chong and Gomez because, and I know that this is not going to be popular, but you've got Dan James, you've got Martial, you've got Rashford. Beyond them, you've got Lingard, you've got Mata, you've got Sanchez. If Lukaku's thrown into that as well, that's 7 people for 3 spots. and that's before you add Chong, Greenwood, and potentially even Gomez into any one of those wing spots as well. So that's 10 players for 3 spots. It just doesn't go. Lukaku obviously needs to be shipped out. I think he will be shipped out, but I'm not.
It's a waste of a preseason if he's not.
Exactly, and I'm not behind the idea that we don't need to bring someone in, because even in that number 9 slot, then you've got Rashford, who seems to be the out-and-out choice for it. You've got Martial who can play there. You've got Sanchez who can play there. You've got Greenwood who can play there. That's 4 people who can conceivably play that role. And you probably even put Sanchez behind Greenwood at this point as well. Mm. And then on the left, you've got 3 players who can cover that role. On the right, you've got 3 players who can cover that role, possibly 4 for each. Who can each play that role to varying degrees of success. So we should be looking to get rid of more from the forward line, I think, because I think there's just a massive block there at the minute. It's just a massive sort of unbalancing of the squad that has occurred in those sort of forward positions that we just need to. And with Lukaku, I would hark back to when Klopp first went into Liverpool. Benteke was a serviceable striker. He would get you maybe 15 goals a season.
Yeah.
But you know what? He wasn't worth a shit in a high-pressing system. And he shipped him out at the first available opportunity. So, and it's not that Lukaku won't get you goals, but it's pointless with your sort of the linchpin or the focal point of your attack and them not being willing to press for 90 minutes. And that's just not the player that he is. Just even from a build aspect, someone who is that muscly just isn't going to have the cardiovascular ability to get through that much pressing over 90 minutes. It's just not going to happen.
And if you can sell him and reinvest it into players that do fit what you want to do, I just don't see why that's ultimately though, I do understand why the club is adamant that Inter meet the price, because this is the same shit Inter did to us with Perisic, right? Where they kept upping the value and asking for more and more. And it's like, we haven't actually done that. We've kind of stayed steady. From all the reports anyway, it seems that we've said, okay, look, £75 million, that's the valuation. Either meet the valuation or fuck off. Because the last thing I saw was that they offered 55 million in Perisic. I mean, come on.
It'll end up being 60 plus 10 in bonuses, and that will acquiesce to, I think, £70 million, but it'll be 60 million plus 10. And even then we would have made away like gangbusters if that's the case.
I'm not even sure it'll get to that.
If you bring in Maguire and then bring in somebody else, like a midfielder, hopefully, maybe we finally get the Longstaff. Yeah, that could be it.
I've got a sinking feeling it'll end up being a loan with the not the option, the obligation to buy. Yeah.
Even then, I don't care. What does it matter? As long as they're obligated to buy him for this set amount of money, I don't care if it's 20 million, then 20 million, then 30 million.
You don't care, but the Glazers care, and Ed Woodward cares.
Why? You're still not going to get those transfer payments up front anyway, so fuck it. Why the hell not?
Yeah.
I have no idea how that stuff works. I'm assuming it has to be something with the accounting purposes of it.
I had absolutely no idea why people were laughing that option out of the building. It's like you've got the best of both worlds here. He's gone for definite for 2 years, and then they have to buy him anyway. So it'd be even funnier if he's shit for 2 years, and then they need to fucking buy him for an extra 30 million quid.
Yeah,
you numpties, you're missing all the comedy value. Anyway. Signings, I think, is probably the best way to segue. Obviously, Ashwin just mentioned Maguire there. The one that's been making the most noise over the last couple of days, though, is Fernandes. And I say he's been making noise. It's kind of the lack of noise that's been making all the noise. Now, I was kind of the opinion silently that we were never going to fucking sign anyone while we're halfway around the world. Is that an absurd? Is that an absurd position for myself where the entire squad is over one side of the world and we're going to bring in someone new? That just didn't seem to fit for me. I think it's all going to accelerate now. As soon as we touch down, I think within 2 or 3 days, I think we will have made a signing before we fly out to Norway.
Yeah. I can see the logic in that. I hadn't thought of it like that.
I don't know.
It just seemed obvious. It's like, you're going to fly Maguire out for a week?
Yeah.
And then have him adjust to their time out there. have virtually no time in and around the squad to learn anything new, and then flying back. It's like, why? What would be the point in that? You might as well just leave him at home and have him gain minutes with Leicester. There you go. And that's exactly what he's been doing.
You could also sign him and doing training with the under 23s or something until.
No, but this is better.
They're all off in that. They're off in Austria. Well, a lot of them are off in Austria. I think they just had a pre-season game with Swindon as well, actually. But it doesn't make sense to do it that way. You can't ask.
No, yeah.
Can you imagine being Harry Maguire and being like, right, we're going to bring you in, but then we're going to make you train with the Resis for a week? No, fuck you.
You
fly me to Singapore.
Yeah, it just made more sense just to, still do the negotiating, still talk to clubs, but maybe just wait until we're home, until we start bringing in new players. That's just me. It just seems like the logical way to do it, but then again, it's Woodward, so you never know.
Yeah.
But in terms of Fernandes, I mean, he had a pretty barnstorming performance against Liverpool. I don't know if anyone caught it.
No.
Caught a little bit of it, but I didn't watch the whole thing. No.
Yeah, he was everywhere. Like he was, like if our midfield against Chelsea would to be Fernandes, Pogba with say McTominay behind them, I think we're walking that game. To be honest, if he's there, especially if he performs like he did against Liverpool, because he was fantastic. I'm not going to say he's the one, but like he's someone who can definitely improve this side and he could open up so much else.
He's the 10 that you like. I mean, I don't know if he's not the perfect 10. Like obviously I'm sure I can't think right now, but like considering what's out there in the market and the fact that we've been linked with him so much, like the way he plays it makes sense why we've been linked with him. And I know there have been reports that we were like never interested in him or something, which I don't buy. That sounds like a bit of negotiating. But yeah, like you can see every time I have happened to catch him and have been, able to watch him, you can just see why he would fit into what Solskjaer wants, like the way he wants to play. Yeah. He's very, like once he gets the ball, he's trying to make a play. He's not, recycling the ball out wide and he's like getting on the ball and he's trying to make shit happen. And that's obviously great. Like I mean, I know that Pereira has had a pretty decent preseason, and like Lingard and Mata have had moments, and Gomez has a lot of talent. But at that position in that formation, if that's how we're going to play, you want somebody that over the course of a season you trust can get you, maybe something like 10 and 10, right, at least. And Fernandes has proven productive. Sure, it's just Portugal, but like none of these guys have even touched that level of productivity that I can, you could even dream of. So I totally get.
You could probably realistically scale it down. Like if you can make an adjustment for the fact that it is the Portuguese league, and probably 23 and like I think it was 23 and 27, something
crazy,
stupid like that.
Yeah.
Or, like 23 and 17, 23 and 27 or whatever. Like there's every chance that becomes, like you say, like a 10 and 10 or a 12 and 15 type season, which is already more than what we're getting from that position anyway.
And like if you do that, then you definitely don't need Lukaku, right? Like that's like
absolutely.
If you add goals, like that's kind of the way I was thinking about Fernandes. Is like if you bring him in, then I'm 100% like I have zero worries about selling Lukaku, because you're replacing goals. And like honestly, that just adds such a different dynamic to what we've had, because like I guess Pogba had a good goal scoring year last year, but I don't know if I would describe him as a goal scoring midfielder. I don't think that's what he is.
A lot of those were penalties.
Right.
Yeah.
And I still like Pogba playing. Like I like where he's playing now with the pivot. It's just that like you always need to make sure that like McTominay has been great, because he's happy to just stay back and do all the hard work, and he still has the legs for it, right? Like Mata just happy to do that too. He just doesn't have the legs for it anymore. And like if you play Pogba in the pivot, that's fine, but like you obviously need to have somebody that's willing to cover that the space he vacates quite frequently. Like I kind of like the idea of bringing in Fernandes, and then you have so much creativity in your midfield. And obviously, like you have fluid front three. It'd be such a different dynamic to what we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
So it's transfer deadline day. There's 5 minutes to put the facts in, but you know only one is going to get through, and you got to choose between Maguire or Fernandes. Which one do you go for?
Maguire.
Yeah. I thought that'd be the answer.
Like, and it's not because I think Maguire is a better player than Fernandes.
It's because he feels he's the round peg in the round hole.
Yeah.
The centre back is the one that needs filling.
Yeah.
And a Maguire Lindelof stroke Maguire Tuanzebe partnership looks like that's the balancing act. That's the well balanced centre back partnership that I think is gonna be most important for us moving forward.
Yep. And then also if you bring in Maguire, I just think it we've all criticized Smalling at different times. Smalling's come in for a lot of criticism, but if you're removing him from we have to start him because he's the best we've got, to he's the backup for Maguire, that changes his value a lot. Like it changes your perception of him a lot, and you'd be happy with Smalling starting in cup games, right? There'd be no problem with that.
I don't think I would be.
I don't know. I could live with that for a year if it was if Smalling is the backup for Maguire and Tuanzebe is the backup for Lindelof. For a year at least, I would be very okay with that.
My feelings on Chris Smalling have been made abundantly clear on this podcast over the last 3 or 4 years or so.
Yeah,
the man is inept at playing football.
He
can defend.
He
can defend. Everything else, though, he's terrible. He has no awareness about how to receive a pass. He can hardly give a pass. He is just physically and the art and the act of defending. He knows how to do that to an extent, but he has stolen a living here for the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. I've just never really rated him all that highly. I always thought Jones has been far and away the better defender.
No, I can't. I can't believe. I don't even want to.
He's
debate
a better
this.
player. He's just.
he's not. He's not the better player. He's not.
He is.
He's not.
He patently is.
No.
He's a much better player than Chris Smalling.
No.
Not.
At making memes, at memeing.
The thing is with Jones, that's the thing that works against him, is the fact that because he has these comedy faces, that people somehow think that detracts from his ability as a footballer.
He can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy.
As a footballer detracts from his ability as a footballer.
No, Jones is much better than Smalling, and if you disagree, then it's not a case of we can all disagree. It's no, you're just wrong.
Wrong.
No. Smalling is a non-league footballer stealing a living at United.
No. Jones is just so shocking. His positioning has always been dire.
Jones, I saw something on the calf today. Jones, on average, through his career at United, or since in the last 6 years since Ferguson retired, he averages missing 18 matches per season. 18 matches per season. You cannot. I don't care how good he is. I don't care how good he is.
Someone for being injured.
Yes, you can. That is. No, you can't. Yes, you can. That is the value of a player. If you can't stay healthy, then I have no use for you. If you can't stay healthy, then who cares?
I would rather have Phil Jones injured than Chris Smalling healthy.
Phil Jones injures himself.
I would rather punt Phil Jones into the Atlantic Ocean.
How?
What do you mean, how?
When was the last time Phil Jones injured himself? Go on, I'm intrigued.
Towards the end of the season.
Yeah, didn't he do something crazy? I forgot what he did. Something.
I can't remember now, but he was limping off. He limped off at the end of the season.
So he limped off.
Yeah,
and therefore he did it to himself.
Who cares why? Who cares why he does it? It's been. He's been here for what? 8 years, 9 years? God, 8 years, I think. And every year he has a run of 5 or 6 matches, and he looks good, and then he gets hurt. It's every year this happens. It's not like
okay, but he has 5 or 6 matches where he looks good, correct?
Smalling has 5 or 6 matches. He has more than that.
No, he doesn't.
Yes,
he
does.
Ever,
yes,
ever
he does.
He never.
Smalling
ever does.
At PSG last year, he literally dominated Mbappe.
Shit.
He dominated. Well, give me one match where Jones has dominated a top class attacker. I'll wait. Because the last memory I have of Jones...
Smalls dominated Mbappe?
At PSG? Absolutely. Absolutely, he dominated.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. He bullied him.
Every time Mbappe got the ball, I thought, oh, shit.
Well, that's because you hate Smalling. It's not because it's what happened. It didn't happen. He didn't create anything in that match.
No,
and even then, Ashley Young bailed him out. Even the Ashley Young that you hate, Ashley Young bailed Smalling out about 4 or 5 times.
Good,
in that
I'm
match,
happy.
And Smalling got the fucking credit
Ashley
for
Young
it.
is better than Phil Jones, too. At least he can stay healthy.
Yeah. No, he's right. He is right.
Fuck the
Ashley
pair
Young
of you.
is better than Phil Jones.
Fuck the pair of you.
No,
You're both wrong.
no, Phil Jones.
I
mean-
just wanted to make one quick point before we continue bashing players in United. I think that just watching us play, I feel like if I was Solskjaer, I might value getting Longstaff in more than Fernandez, because I think you could convince yourself that between Pereira, Mata, Lingard, Gomez, and even Sanchez, you have enough at 10 that you can get through a season, and if the goal is qualify for top 4, you have enough. Whereas I think if we're going to play with a double pivot, outside of McTominay and Fred, look, he's still gaining fitness, but the fact is he hasn't done anything yet for us to be inspired and with confidence. Like, if you want to play a double pivot,
You run a midfield against PSG.
yeah. I mean, he did again in defensive shape. I don't know if you can really say he ran the midfield, but Longstaff fits in that kind of like role next to Pogba that you envision.
Does he? Because you've just said Fred is unproven, but Longstaff's even less proven.
No. No. What I'm saying is that I can understand why you'd want to add more depth to that position, because to me,
Right.
Matic looks shot. I think he's done. He might. I hope he doesn't play much this year, because he just looks completely done to me. But I think like if they value Longstaff, which it really seems, every report indicates that they're very high on his potential and all of that. If they value him to that degree, then I can understand why you would value getting depth in that position more than you would value going for Fernandez, where maybe we don't have the top quality at 10, but we do have more players I think you'd be comfortable with giving time there. I don't know. That's just my thought. I can understand that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's still way, way, way up in the air about what's going to happen with this whole Fernandes thing. But there just seems to be, unless it is going to be like the sort of Schneider of our time, I guess it's like it seemed to happen like right at the start of the summer that we got linked with him, and it's carried on. It's not as if it's not been persistent, and journalists have been journalists in and around the story have been saying, yes, this is going to happen. This is definitely happening. Like, it's all Manchester United, and then all of a sudden there was this bit of a wobble, before they played Liverpool, which seems again like to be more posturing more than anything else, and it just seems to, maybe just get another couple of million out of us or whatever. But to me, it just seems like all of this seems to have been done. We just didn't get it done before Preseason kicked off or before we left for the tour.
Yeah,
which was never going to be realistic to get 4 or 5 bits of business done before that point. And I think it just seems a bit.
It almost feels like they keep trying to smoke out more bidders, and there is nobody else. Like, it feels like we're the one major big club that is very interested in buying him, and then they'll randomly will come out, oh, Liverpool's interested. It's like, why would Liverpool be interested in him?
Yeah, and even Klopp came out and said that it wasn't going to be a big spending summer for them. Like, they seem to have a very set plan in place where they will have a big summer one year and then have sort of a more reserved summer the next one. That seems to be the noises that are coming out of Liverpool, at least. So it's not their year to be buying big.
He seems to rate I think he's trying to give the young players their chance this year. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, he wants to give Keita a go. I think that's one of the bigger things coming out of there, I think. And I think with us at least, I mean, Maguire, that it just seemed obvious that we were going to wait until we were back to try and push that one through. Fernandes, pretty much the same thing. I'd be surprised if one of those two wasn't through the door before we play Christensen on the 30th, or definitely by the time we play Milan, which I think we'll have both of them done by. But I don't know. Has there been and it's sorry, just to go back to what Ashwin was saying as well, trying to smoke out more bidders. We apparently were had Nicolas Pepe over the line, and then all of a sudden he's going to Napoli. That just goes to show that that kind of thing does happen out there in the press. It's just it is just a bit ridiculous.
It's pretty obvious to me. I think the 3 names that are still out there that we've been linked with all summer. I mean, I don't think it's a mystery. The players that we're interested in. I think we're interested in Maguire, interested in Fernandez and interested in Longstaff.
Yeah, there's definitely something in all of those.
Yeah.
It's not like there's been like the odd one where it's here's Mario Lemina. It's like, what the fuck did that come from? like the three names have been, like you say, that we haven't signed have been Longstaff, Maguire, Fernandez, and everyone seems to maintain that we've got an interest in those three players. Whether we get 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 3, I think we'll only get 2. But even so, if we come away from this summer with Dan James, Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire and Fernandez, or Harry Maguire and Longstaff,
I don't think we'll get Longstaff. I think Newcastle will price him out of the move.
yes, I do agree with you.
I thought that, but they just bought a £40 million striker, Joe Linton. I don't know who he is, somebody. And then there's been rumors they're trying to buy some French attacking midfielder as well. So I'm wondering if I mean, all of this is like, guesswork, but it could be that they want to get their business done before selling Longstaff. Because I know they banked 30 million for Perez, but it's Ashley, right? So,
He's going to want a break even
and
somewhere, particularly if he's still interested in selling up.
Right. And so like if you can I'm 100 I almost feel like if Ole wants him that bad and if they rate him that bad or that highly internally, there's definitely a deal to be made there and there's some wiggle room. So like, maybe £30 million, £35 million gets it done, but that would probably break Newcastle even and maybe even get them a tiny profit. And I'm sure Ashley would be very happy with that.
Yeah, I think 30. Someone on the cast said 30 plus 5 probably gets it done. Like they were supposedly wanting 50, we supposedly bid 20, so 35 to meet in the middle would seem quite reasonable. But again, it's Ashley and it's Woodward, and I would love to be a fly on the wall in that negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Would you? Would you really?
Well, no.
Ashley would be pissed up in the fireplace, wouldn't he?
Well, yeah. I think that's probably. I think that's about as good a note to leave it on. We've got probably one more of these. Sorry, Ed, go on.
I was going to say, should we end with slagging off Spurs?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. Fucking Spurs. What a bunch of fucking cunts.
I know.
Just what an absolute bunch of wankers.
I honestly hope Dele Alli stays at Spurs his entire career and wins nothing.
Well, if he stays at Spurs, that's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. I still got a feeling that Spurs might sneak an FA Cup with Pochettino at the helm, but
they'll fuck it up.
He doesn't even care about the cup. He's said it like 15 times. He doesn't care about it.
Yeah, well, he says that until he's in the final.
Yeah, well,
he didn't care about the Champions League until he.
until he was in the final.
yeah, that's a Sissoko. The challenge was bad, and then he stamped on James in the corner. Like,
I know
that was awful. That should have been a straight red, no question.
Yeah,
and that will be in the Premier League this season. I'm assuming that would be a VAR.
And I'm wondering actually, because there's video evidence of that all around, and I remember saying this in the WhatsApp group as well. Like Wayne Rooney for an accidental elbow at that, when he got sent off in the pre-season for the 06-07 season, and the FA reviewed it. Yeah. And they gave him an additional 3 games after reviewing it after an accidental elbow. That video is all over Twitter. That's everywhere. If Sissoko doesn't get an additional 3 fucking games, I'm going to hit the wall. Because how can you do that for one preseason tournament and then not do it? And that's the ICC Cup as well. This is like an official recognised tournament that this has happened in.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that, because if he doesn't get a 3-game ban for that, then something's up. Absolutely. But yeah, Spurs, cunts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cunts.
They're just bottling shy talks.
Lads, it's Tottenham.
Yeah, exactly.
Still the greatest 3 words ever spoken about a football club. Like, nothing has been more succinct. Like, there is no fat on that statement. Like, all 3 words are needed, but they just capture it all so perfectly. Lads, it's Tottenham.
Yeah.
Poetry. We'll leave it there. And I think I've got a title for this podcast as well. So that'll be it from me. As I say, I was going to go into, before we levelled some shite at Spurs, I think we've got one more to come before the start of the season, where we just have a bit of a roundup of everything and preview the Chelsea game. But yeah, so look forward to that. And yeah, so that's everything from me.
I suppose good night from me.
And good night from me.
Speak to you guys soon again. And good night, everyone.
Take care.